It's all mythology, it's all fake, but in reality, it's not all fake. These people left behind such detailed records and information. It's a time capsule of information on stone tablets for us today to be able to decipher, break down, and understand, and that's what we're here to do now.
Imagine a world where gods walked among men, and one king dared to challenge them. A king, powerful and immortal, yet crippled by the fear of death. His friend, a wild man, becomes his only true companion, and together they face the unimaginable. But when the unthinkable happens, the king is left with nothing but the stark reality of his mortality.
Is there any references to anything that's similar, like Anunnaki type characters, the Nephilim or anything like that in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
They show up everywhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Enuma Elish, in the Epic of Atrahasis. Of course, even in the Bible, they're known as the Anak, A-N-A-K. We were grasshoppers in their eyesight, it says in the biblical text. So no matter where you go in any culture, you're going to discover that these beings, in some way, shape, or form, engaged mankind, brought knowledge, teaching, building techniques, and just so much more wisdom and information, esoteric wisdom, alchemy. All these things came from these people.
So the craziest version of this story is that they genetically engineered us out of lower primates and put us here to mine gold.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then established different types of civilizations and taught us how to build things, taught us all these different things. And enough time has passed that we've kind of forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Enough time has passed. That's the wackiest version of it, right?
Right. That's the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, the wackiest versions that they made us.
In the world of ancient history, few names have resonated through the ages as much as Noah. The biblical figure is often remembered for surviving a catastrophic flood that wiped out humanity. But there is another figure that exists in a parallel narrative, King Gilgamesh. The two figures share similarities that go beyond just their association with floods, offering a fascinating glimpse into a forgotten era of human civilization.
So when you start analyzing the text, you discover that there was an encampment in a place called South Africa at Adam's Calendar. Okay. Now at Adam's Calendar, there's actually the very first gold mines discovered. They're dating them back to about 200,000 years ago. And that's incredible because there's a building there that looks like a worn down structure. Now in the tablets, it talks about the fact that the Ijiji, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and create a bustling civilization. Also, they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working. They were like the construction workers, and Anu and Enki and Enlil, these leader gods, were like the foremen, the master architects and so forth, right? The boss. So these people were working, but they weren't supposed to be enslaved. They were volunteers. They got tired of doing the work, according to them, for about 250,000 years of labor on Earth, and also, according to them, on Mars. This is in the text. They call it Lamu. And so they decided to go to war against Enki, Enlil, and Anu because their demands had not been met. So they went to meet them in the Epic of Atrahasis. They go to Adam's Calendar. They go to that same structure that was discovered where that gold mine is located. I was like, holy crap, there is some link here to gold. Specifically, exactly, I don't know, but I know if you're an advanced civilization, you need gold. And the people that you have working it for you probably think, it's to adorn or to adorn yourself or in recognition of the gods. So they'll wear it and they'll utilize it, but not for technology. But what's crazy is they go to war, they get ready to go to battle, and then Enki says, I have an idea that will stop this war. There's an existing being on this planet, existing, not something that doesn't exist, existing. We can add our essence to it with a slain god. So they're talking about taking the DNA or genetics from one of themselves and mixing it with the DNA of the hominid that was here. It's not specified whether it was, an ape man or anything, but they don't specify in the tablets, but to create a worker being. And they began to do this genetic modification, probably disconnecting some of our DNA, making genetic modification to us to get us to take orders from them. They inserted something called a worship gene, which was just discovered recently, that human beings have a gene inside of them that can be turned on and turned off. It can be turned off in a laboratory setting. It can also be turned off with a magnetic field around your head. And when it's off, you don't want to worship anything outside of yourself. You look inside, and when it's on, you look to get something from the outside. So this is incredible. And so they made us worship
a
people.
Gene
Yes.
inside of us
Yeah.
to make us worship them. How
Right.
genius.
It's incredible, because then you're not a slave anymore. You're doing this for the honor of the gods.
The story of Gilgamesh is one that has intrigued historians, archaeologists, and even mythologists. Unlike Noah, however, Gilgamesh was a historical figure, a king who ruled the ancient city-state of Uruk in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. His reign is believed to have occurred around 2700 BCE during what is known as the early dynastic period in Mesopotamia. This was a time when city-states were flourishing across the region, marking some of the earliest complex societies in human history. Uruk, where Gilgamesh ruled, was not just another city. It was a powerhouse of culture, innovation, and urban development. Uruk's significance in history goes beyond being the birthplace of one of the most famous kings. The city itself was a cradle of civilization. Located in the fertile lands along the Euphrates River, Uruk became a vibrant center of trade, commerce, and intellectual advancement. The urban landscape was one of the earliest known to humanity, with marketplaces buzzing with activity, grand temples rising toward the sky, and imposing walls encircling the city. It was in Uruk that some of the first monumental architectural feats of human history were achieved, including the construction of city walls so massive they were said to have been built by Gilgamesh himself. The scale of the construction in Uruk was impressive. The city's walls, with their geometrical patterns, required an extraordinary amount of labor. There had to be not just technical knowledge to build them, but also immense willpower and intent. This was a time of unprecedented social and organizational development. Gilgamesh's influence extended beyond the construction of walls. As the leader of Uruk, he was seen not just as a king, but as a divine figure, responsible for ensuring the prosperity of his people. He governed religious practices, military campaigns, and administrative duties, all while overseeing the city's development and protecting it from external threats. Life under Gilgamesh's rule was likely a blend of divine favor and the pragmatic demands of governance. The king's connection to the gods wasn't just symbolic, it was a cornerstone of his leadership. Uruk was home to the worship of Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, war, whose temple in the city was a focal point of religious and cultural life. Under Gilgamesh's watch, Uruk reached the zenith of Sumerian architecture, engineering, and social organization. It became one of the world's largest cities, with a population that marked it as an essential political and economic hub in the region. But Uruk was not just a city of architectural and economic brilliance. It was also a center of intellectual achievement. The invention of cuneiform writing, one of the earliest known writing systems, is credited to the people of Uruk. This development would go on to shape not just Mesopotamian culture, but also the course of human history. Cuneiform, used for record-keeping and communication, was the first step towards written language as we know it today. Despite the advancements of Uruk and Gilgamesh's remarkable leadership, the question arises, did Gilgamesh actually exist? Or is he simply a legendary figure whose life has been mythologized over time? This is where things get interesting. The debate about whether Gilgamesh was a real king or merely a character from epic tales is an ongoing one. To some, his existence is a matter of historical fact, while to others, it's purely mythological. The Sumerian king list, a record of rulers in ancient Sumer, provides one of the key pieces of evidence for Gilgamesh's existence. This list, which blends history with mythology, mentions Gilgamesh alongside other rulers, suggesting that he might have been a real figure who ruled in ancient Mesopotamia. His name appears among other kings, making it clear that the people of Sumer saw him as a significant part of their history. The significance of the Sumerian king list is that it was not a single document, but a series of lists and records found in various locations across the ancient world. These lists suggest that keeping track of rulers was important to the Sumerians, and the fact that Gilgamesh is consistently listed reinforces the idea that he was a prominent historical figure. Moreover, artifacts like cylinder seals and clay tablets have been discovered, with Gilgamesh's name etched into them. These items were used to mark ownership and commemorate significant events, offering a glimpse into the historical memory of Gilgamesh. However, while these artifacts and the king list provide compelling evidence for Gilgamesh's existence, they don't give us a full account of his life. What we have instead are fragments, clues scattered across time, hinting at a king whose legacy endures in both historical records and myth. The challenge, of course, is differentiating the myth from the man. As is the case with many ancient figures, the lines between history and myth often blur, making it difficult to distinguish between what truly happened and what was embellished over time. Despite this, the archaeological evidence we do have paints a fascinating picture. Gilgamesh's existence, it seems, was more than just a legend. He was a real king who ruled a real city at a pivotal time in human history. Yet, the true extent of his reign, his achievements, and the exact nature of his influence remain shrouded in mystery. It's this very mystery that continues to captivate historians and archaeologists alike, who with each new discovery, draw us closer to understanding not only Gilgamesh the man, but also the world in which he lived. Gilgamesh's reign stands as a remarkable testament to the early advances of human civilization. His name appears in a variety of ancient records, the most notable being the Sumerian King List, a document that provides a fascinating blend of history and myth. This list isn't just a straightforward account of rulers, but rather a compilation of names, reign lengths, and notable achievements, interwoven with mythical elements. Gilgamesh's inclusion in this list suggests that his legacy was of significant importance to the Sumerians, offering a glimpse into a time when the boundaries between historical events and mythology were often difficult to distinguish. The Sumerian king list has been found in different versions and locations, each adding to the complexity of interpreting it. The list was used not only to keep track of rulers, but also to establish the legitimacy of a king's rule. In ancient Sumer, there was a strong belief in divine right, that kings ruled because they were chosen by the gods. This made the act of recording rulers vital, as it ensured continuity in the divine order. The king list lists Gilgamesh alongside other Sumerian kings, reinforcing the idea that he was a real historical figure. His name appears in a list of rulers who, according to the document, held power for an extraordinarily long time. While the exaggerated reign lengths could be attributed to the mythological nature of the document, the mere fact that Gilgamesh is included in these records gives credibility to the idea that he existed. In addition to the king list, various inscriptions and artifacts have been discovered, further supporting the notion that Gilgamesh was a real figure. Among the most important of these are cylinder seals and clay tablets, which were used to record events, mark ownership, and in some cases, commemorate significant achievements. Some of these artifacts bear Gilgamesh's name, offering further evidence that he was recognized as a ruler in his time. These inscriptions, though not providing a complete picture of his life or reign, nonetheless hint at the enduring legacy of Gilgamesh as both a historical figure and a cultural icon. However, while these artifacts and the Sumerian king list help ground Gilgamesh in the realm of history, they don't offer a comprehensive account of his life or achievements. What we have instead are fragmented clues, scattered pieces of evidence that allow us to piece together a picture of his reign. It's this scarcity of clear-cut historical records that makes Gilgamesh such an enigmatic figure. His story is like a puzzle, with some pieces missing, leaving us to wonder about the specifics of his leadership, his accomplishments, and the role he played in the development of ancient Mesopotamia. What we do know about Gilgamesh's reign suggests that he was not merely a ruler, but a figure of immense power and influence. His leadership was likely marked by both political and military achievements, as well as cultural and religious advancements. As the king of Uruk, he was responsible for overseeing the city's administration, its defenses, and its religious practices. It is believed that during his reign, Uruk became one of the most important cities in ancient Mesopotamia, renowned for its monumental architecture, vibrant culture, and significant contributions to the development of early civilization. The legacy of Gilgamesh is not solely defined by his political and military prowess, though. His cultural impact is equally significant. Uruk, under his rule, was a hub of intellectual activity. The city is credited with being the birthplace of cuneiform writing, one of the earliest known writing systems in human history. This invention would go on to shape the course of human civilization, facilitating record-keeping, communication, and the preservation of knowledge. It's difficult to overstate the importance of this achievement, as it laid the groundwork for the development of written languages across the ancient world. But Gilgamesh's legacy also extends into the realm of mythology. His story, recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh, has been passed down through generations, captivating audiences for millennia. The epic itself is a rich blend of historical events, mythological tales, and philosophical reflections. It presents Gilgamesh as both a powerful king and a tragic hero, a man who is both divine and human. This dual nature of Gilgamesh, part god, part man, sets him apart from other figures in ancient mythology. His quest for immortality, his struggles with the gods, and his relationships with other characters, like Enkidu, have made the Epic of Gilgamesh one of the most enduring works of literature in human history. Despite the lack of detailed records about his life, the evidence we do have paints a picture of a man who was larger than life, a ruler whose influence extended beyond the walls of his city, and whose story transcended the boundaries of time. The combination of historical evidence and mythological storytelling makes Gilgamesh a fascinating figure, one whose impact can still be felt today. The question of whether Gilgamesh was a real historical figure or merely a character from myth is one that has been debated for centuries. For some, the archaeological evidence, the Sumerian king list, the inscriptions, the artifacts, provides enough proof to conclude that he was a real king who ruled in Uruk. For others, the blending of myth and history makes it difficult to say for certain. What is clear, however, is that Gilgamesh's story is more than just a legend. It's a reflection of the early stages of human civilization, a time when the lines between history and myth were often blurred, and when the achievements of individuals were woven into the fabric of the collective memory of a culture. In the end, Gilgamesh's legacy is a combination of both history and myth. He was a real person who ruled a city at the dawn of civilization, but his story has also been mythologized over time. His epic journey, his quest for immortality, and his relationship with the gods reflect the beliefs and values of the people of Mesopotamia. Through his story, we catch a glimpse of a time when the gods were believed to walk among men, and when kings were not just rulers, but divine figures with the power to shape the fate of their people. Whether he was a real king or a mythical figure, Gilgamesh remains a symbol of the human quest for meaning, immortality, and understanding in a world filled with mystery and uncertainty. The Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest stories ever told, and it offers a window into the values, beliefs, and struggles of ancient Mesopotamian society. The epic, recorded on clay tablets using the cuneiform script, was discovered in the 19th century when archaeologists unearthed the ruins of the ancient library of Nineveh. These discoveries revealed that the story of Gilgamesh had been passed down for centuries, with different versions and fragments scattered across the ancient world. Though some parts of the epic are missing, what remains is a powerful narrative that continues to resonate with readers today. The story of Gilgamesh is much more than just a king's adventures. It is a tale of the human condition, of the search for meaning, immortality, and the bonds that define us. Gilgamesh, a king who is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, is portrayed as a mighty ruler with superhuman strength and courage. He is a man of ambition, seeking fame and glory in everything he does. However, his journey is also one of personal growth, as he is forced to confront the limitations of his power and the inevitability of death. Gilgamesh's story begins with his rule over Uruk, where he is depicted as a powerful and almost invincible king. He is admired by his people for his strength and leadership, but at the same time, he is feared and disliked for his arrogance and pride. Gilgamesh's behavior as a ruler is often described as tyrannical, as he uses his position to satisfy his own desires, ignoring the needs of his people. His people, exhausted by his rule, pray to the gods for relief. In response to their pleas, the gods create Enkidu, a wild man who is to be Gilgamesh's equal in strength and a counterbalance to his arrogance. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu meet, it marks the beginning of a profound transformation for both of them. Enkidu, who initially represents the untamed forces of nature, becomes a civilizing influence on Gilgamesh. Through their friendship, Gilgamesh learns humility, and their relationship forms the emotional heart of the epic. The bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu is not just one of friendship, but of mutual respect and dependence. They share a deep connection, and together, they embark on a series of heroic quests, the first of which is their battle against Humbaba, the fearsome guardian of the cedar forest. The fight with Humbaba is one of the most thrilling parts of the epic, showcasing Gilgamesh's strength and courage. Humbaba, appointed by the god Enlil to guard the sacred forest, is a monstrous figure, and the challenge of defeating him is a monumental task. Despite the dangers, Gilgamesh and Enkidu decide to confront Humbaba, and with the help of the sun god Shamash, they defeat him. This victory marks a turning point in the epic, as Gilgamesh begins to realize that there is more to life than simply seeking power and glory. The defeat of Humbaba is not just a physical triumph, but a symbolic moment in Gilgamesh's personal growth. However, the true turning point in the epic comes with the death of Enkidu. The gods, angered by the killing of Humbaba, decide that one of the two heroes must die as punishment. Enkidu, who has become a beloved companion to Gilgamesh, falls ill and dies, leaving Gilgamesh devastated. His grief is overwhelming, and it is in the wake of Enkidu's death that Gilgamesh embarks on his most significant quest, the quest for immortality. Gilgamesh's search for immortality is driven by his fear of death. He cannot accept the idea that his friend, someone as strong and powerful as Enkidu, could die, and he cannot reconcile himself to the fact that he too will eventually die. Fear of mortality is a central theme in the epic, and it reflects a fundamental human concern, the desire to escape death and find eternal life. Gilgamesh sets off on a journey to find Utnapishtim, the only human known to have attained immortality, seeking answers to the question of how to overcome death. Utnapishtim, who is often compared to the biblical Noah, is the central figure in the flood story that forms a significant part of the epic. Utnapishtim's story is a powerful one, as he recounts how the gods decided to destroy humanity with a great flood, sparing only him and his wife. They were instructed to build a boat and survive the deluge, and as a result, they were granted eternal life. Gilgamesh, desperate for a similar fate, asks Utnapishtim how he too can achieve immortality. However, Utnapishtim explains that immortality is not meant for humans, and that death is an inevitable part of life. Despite this, he offers Gilgamesh a test to prove his worth. The test involves staying awake for 6 days and 7 nights, a task that Gilgamesh fails. He falls asleep almost immediately, and when he wakes, Utnapishtim reminds him that the gods did not grant immortality to humans. This moment is a sobering one for Gilgamesh, as he realizes that immortality is not something that can be achieved through strength, courage, or even divine intervention. It is a reminder of the limits of human power and the inevitability of death. Despite his failure, Utnapishtim gives Gilgamesh a plant that has the power to restore youth, but even this gift is fleeting. The plant is stolen by a serpent on Gilgamesh's journey back to Uruk, and he returns to his city, not with immortality, but with the understanding that death is an inescapable part of the human experience. The theme of immortality and the acceptance of death is central to the epic, and it reflects a profound existential question that resonates with readers to this day. Gilgamesh's journey is not just a physical one, it is a spiritual and emotional odyssey in which he confronts his fears, his desires, and his limitations. In the end, he returns to Uruk, a changed man, having gained wisdom and insight into the nature of life and death. His legacy, as recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh, is not one of eternal life, but of human endeavor, and the search for meaning in an uncertain world. The relationship between Gilgamesh and the gods is another key element in the gods in Mesopotamian mythology are not distant or impassive beings. They are actively involved in the lives of humans, often shaping events in ways that reflect the complexities of human nature. The gods are not omnipotent or benevolent, and their actions are sometimes motivated by personal interests or emotions. This is evident in the way the gods treat Gilgamesh and Enkidu. At times, they help the heroes, as when Shamash aids them in their battle against Humbaba, but at other times, they punish them, as when they cause Enkidu's death. The gods' involvement in human affairs reflects the Mesopotamian belief that life was a constant struggle between humans and the divine, and that humans were subject to the whims of the gods. This is particularly evident in the story of the Great Flood, where the gods decide to destroy humanity as a punishment for their sins. In contrast to the later biblical story of Noah, where God promises never to destroy the earth again, the Mesopotamian gods are capricious and unpredictable, demonstrating the harsh and uncertain nature of the divine in ancient Mesopotamian thought. Gilgamesh's journey, however, is not just about his search for immortality. It is also about his personal growth and the lessons he learns along the way. Through his experiences, he learns that while immortality may be beyond his reach, the relationships he forms with others and the wisdom he gains are what give life meaning. His friendship with Enkidu, his understanding of death, and his acceptance of his own mortality are what ultimately shape his legacy. The Epic of Gilgamesh, then, is not just a story of adventure and heroism. It is a deeply philosophical work, exploring themes of friendship, love, mortality, and the human search for meaning. It remains one of the most important and enduring works of ancient literature, offering insights into the nature of humanity and the challenges we face as we navigate the complexities of life and death. Through the character of Gilgamesh, we are reminded that while we may not be able to control our fate, it is the way we live our lives and the relationships we build that define us. The story of Gilgamesh is not just a journey through the ancient world, but also a window into the way human beings have long grappled with questions about their existence and the forces that shape their destiny. Among the most fascinating aspects of his tale are the connections it draws between humanity, the gods, and the natural world. This relationship between the divine and the mortal plays a central role in the epic, and is one of the key reasons why Gilgamesh's story has endured for thousands of years. The gods are not only figures of immense power, but they are also portrayed as beings whose actions are deeply intertwined with the lives of humans. In Gilgamesh's world, the gods are both protectors and adversaries, and their influence on human affairs is often profound, shaping the course of history and determining the fates of individuals. At the heart of Gilgamesh's story is his relationship with the gods, particularly his dealings with Utnapishtim, the survivor of the Great Flood. Utnapishtim, like Noah in the Bible, is a figure whose life has been touched by a cataclysmic event, one that reshaped the fate of humanity. He is the only human to have been granted immortality by the gods, after surviving a massive flood that destroyed the world. The similarities between Utnapishtim's story and the biblical account of Noah are striking. Both men are warned by the gods of an impending disaster. Both are instructed to build an ark to save themselves and their loved ones, and both emerge from the flood to find a world irrevocably changed. This parallel is one of the most enduring aspects of the epic, drawing connections between different ancient cultures and their shared themes of divine punishment, survival, and the struggle for immortality. Utnapishtim's story is a key turning point in Gilgamesh's quest. It is here that the king learns the harsh truth that immortality is not meant for humans. This realization is a powerful moment in the epic, as Gilgamesh, who has sought immortality with such fervor, is forced to come to terms with the limitations of human existence. Utnapishtim, who has witnessed the gods' destruction of humanity, and has been given eternal life as a result, tells Gilgamesh that the gods have decreed that death is an unavoidable part of life. This theme of the inevitability of death runs throughout the epic, and is one of the most profound and universal messages it conveys. Despite Gilgamesh's heroic qualities and his close relationship with the gods, he too must face his mortality. The gods may grant power, wisdom, and even immortality to some, but all mortals must eventually succumb to death. This is a lesson that Gilgamesh must learn the hard way, but it is also a lesson that has resonated with readers for millennia. The story of the Great Flood, as told by Utnapishtim, not only highlights the destructive power of the gods, but also serves as a reflection on the impermanence of human life and the world itself. The gods in the Epic of Gilgamesh are not omnipotent or omniscient. They are capable of both kindness and cruelty, and their decisions are often motivated by personal feelings or a sense of justice. In the case of the flood, the gods are angered by the sins of humanity and decide to wipe out the world, sparing only Utnapishtim and his family. This decision reflects the capricious nature of the divine, as the gods are portrayed as beings who can bring about great destruction, but also, at times, show mercy. Utnapishtim's survival, however, is not just a matter of divine favor. He is chosen because he is wise and pious, and because he listens to the gods' warnings. His survival, and his subsequent immortality, serve as a reminder that human beings, in their quest for meaning and survival, must heed the divine will. While Gilgamesh's encounter with Utnapishtim is central to his understanding of mortality, it is not the only divine interaction that shapes his journey. Throughout the epic, Gilgamesh is guided by several gods, including Shemesh, the sun god, who serves as a protector and mentor to the king. Shemesh's guidance is crucial to Gilgamesh's victory over Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest, as well as to his success in other quests. The sun god's involvement in the epic underscores the importance of divine support in Gilgamesh's journey, and highlights the notion that the gods play an active role in human affairs. Shemesh's role as a divine mentor also illustrates the Mesopotamian belief in the interconnectedness of the divine and the mortal, where the gods not only shape the world, but also provide direction and counsel to those they deem worthy. Another key figure in Gilgamesh's life is his mother, Ninsun, a goddess who plays a more minor but significant role in the epic. While she is not as prominently featured as other divine figures, her interventions on Gilgamesh's behalf highlight the intimate and familial relationships between humans and the gods in Mesopotamian thought. Ninsun's role in the epic serves as a reminder that the gods, even those who are not as well known or as powerful, are still deeply invested in the lives of humans. This relationship between Gilgamesh and his divine mother reflects the way in which the gods are seen not only as distant beings, but also as active participants in the personal lives of individuals. The gods in the Epic of Gilgamesh are not simply external forces that govern the fate of humanity. They are also deeply involved in the emotional and spiritual journeys of the characters. Gilgamesh's quest for immortality, his grief over Enkidu's death, and his eventual acceptance of mortality are all shaped by his interactions with the divine. The gods in the epic are both protectors and adversaries, guiding and challenging Gilgamesh in equal measure. They are not omnipotent beings who control every aspect of human life. Rather, they are powerful and unpredictable forces whose decisions can change the course of history and affect the lives of individuals in profound ways. One of the most striking elements of the epic is the way it explores the relationship between humanity and the natural world. The natural world in the Epic of Gilgamesh is not merely a backdrop to the action, but an active participant in the story. The cedar forest, for example, is not just a place where Gilgamesh and Enkidu battle Humbaba, but also a symbol of the untamed forces of nature. The forest is sacred, and its guardian, Humbaba, represents the raw power of nature that must be conquered in order for civilization to thrive. Similarly, the Great Flood that destroys the world is a natural event that is triggered by the gods, but it is also a reminder of the fragility of human existence in the face of nature's power. This relationship between humanity and nature is also reflected in Gilgamesh's own journey. Throughout the epic, Gilgamesh is forced to confront the limits of his power, not only as a king but as a human being. His quest for immortality is ultimately a confrontation with the natural world, as he seeks to transcend the limitations that nature imposes on him. The gods in turn remind him that immortality is not for mortals, and that the natural cycle of life and death is a fundamental part of the human experience. This recognition of the natural world's power is a pivotal moment in Gilgamesh's journey, as it marks the point at which he begins to accept his mortality and understand the true meaning of life. The concept of Nibiru, a mysterious planet in Mesopotamian mythology, further deepens the connection between the gods, the cosmos, and the fate of humanity. Nibiru, associated with the god Marduk, was thought to be a celestial body that played a key role in Mesopotamian astrology and religious practices. The idea that a celestial body could influence human affairs reflects the ancient belief that the movements of the stars and planets were not random, but were divinely ordained events that could shape the course of human history. The connection between Nibiru and the gods underscores the idea that the cosmos was a reflection of divine will, and that humanity's place in the world was shaped by forces far greater than themselves. This belief in the divine influence of celestial bodies is echoed in the work of researchers like Zecharia Sitchin, who proposed that Nibiru could be linked to catastrophic events on Earth. While Sitchin's theories remain controversial, they have sparked a renewed interest in the idea that ancient myths may hold the key to understanding the forces that have shaped our planet. Whether or not there is any truth to these theories, the story of Nibiru and its connection to the gods is a testament to the enduring power of ancient mythology and its ability to capture the imagination. In conclusion, the Epic of Gilgamesh offers more than just a tale of heroism and adventure. It is a rich and complex exploration of the human condition, touching on themes of mortality, friendship, love, and the relationship between humanity and the divine. Through Gilgamesh's journey, we learn not only about the ancient Mesopotamian worldview, but also about the timeless struggles and questions that continue to shape human existence. The gods may have been distant and powerful, but in the end, it is Gilgamesh's own growth and acceptance of his mortality that defines his legacy. As we reflect on his story, we are reminded that while we may not be able to control our fate, it is the way we live our lives and the relationships we build that ultimately define us.